Good evening from Boston College. I'm Jack Butler, and I'm the Haub's Vice President for Mission and Ministry. I welcome you to the show at 6, BC and the Common Good. The show at 6 features friends and members of the BC community discussing a range of issues affecting our world today, all revolving around the theme of the common good. Topics include how the BC community is responding to the effects of COVID-19, the enduring challenges of the marginalized, to our own resiliency and solidarity, and to the upbuilding of the human dignity throughout the world. The show is based on the central insight of the common good, that is, that the resources that humanity has and needs must be shared equitably. For instance, today each of us is called to promote the common good by social distancing, by wearing masks and washing our hands. These practices, like other forms of solidarity, are not only for our own good, but for the common good. At 6:40, my co-host, Tony Penna, and I will ask our guests questions from you, the audience. Members of the audience can pose a question by going to the question and answer button at the bottom of the screen. We will take those questions and ask our participants and guests. I'd like to repeat that. Members of the audience can pose a question before 6:40 p.m. by going to the question and answer button at the bottom of the screen. They should identify themselves by their name, their relationship to BC. Now, I'd like to introduce my co-host, Tony Penna, who's the AVP and Director of Campus Ministry at Boston College. I'm going to ask Tony to please introduce our guests and to ask the first question.
Thank you, Jack. And it's very nice to be co-hosting with you this evening. And it's a privilege to welcome as our conversation guests 3 of BC's prominent athletic coaches. Joanna Bernabei-McNamee, head coach, women's basketball. Mike Gambino, head coach, men's baseball. And Jeff Hafley, the Gregory P. Barber and family, head coach, football. Coaches, before asking each of you the kickoff question tonight, I'd like to invite you to take a few seconds to introduce yourself to our audience in your own words. Let's start with Mike, and then go to Joanna, and then to Jeff.
Father, thank you for having me, Father Jack. It's an honor to be here, speaking to everybody here tonight, and then to be in a group here with Coach Mack and Haf. It's a little bit humbling, but I really appreciate you having me and inviting me. I'm a 99 grad of Boston College. I sort of joke with people that, I told people when I was here at BC that I was going to be the head baseball coach here someday. So it really is a job that I've always had my eye on and always wanted to get back. So to be able to coach baseball here and help our program serve our greater Jesuit mission, I'm passionate about. And I'm very excited about being able to do.
I'm Joanna Bernabei-McNamee. This is my 3rd season coming up as the women's basketball coach. And I definitely echo Coach Gambino's thoughts. This is very humbling. Thank you, Father Jack and Father Tony, for having me and giving me this opportunity to speak on behalf of myself and our program. And again, this is exciting times, even though we're in tough times, and BC athletics is really on the rise.
Hi, guys. I'm Jeff Hafley, the new football coach. Father Jack, Father Tony, I really appreciate this opportunity. It's great to be on here with Coach Gambino and Coach Mack, humbling as well. Really excited to spend this hour with everybody, offer any insight that we can. Even more excited to be part of this great community, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But thank you all for joining and for listening in. I'm really excited to hear what everybody has to say and really excited to be here.
Thank you, coaches. And now we go to our first question. And the question is for all 3 of you. And we'll start this time with Jeff, and then we'll go to Joanna and then to Mike. First question, why did you get into coaching, and what is it that keeps you energized about coaching?
Well, I got into coaching for the people. Originally, I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a high school teacher, and I wanted to educate people, and I wanted to help people grow. And once I got into football and got into sports, kind of tied everything in together for me, because that's what we are. We're educators and we help people. And that's why I got into it. And I wanted an honorable profession. I wanted to be able to change lives for the betterment. And I believe that's why I started coaching. What keeps me energized are the young men that I'm around every day and the staff I'm around. The relationships that are built, to hear a player say that I've affected or changed his life. You go to bed at night with a smile on your face, and you wake up excited to do it again. But that's what keeps me energized. That's what keeps me motivated. It's not the wins and the losses. It's not. It's what you do for these kids and the growth you see in them. And that's what this is all about. So I appreciate it. That's a great question.
Yeah, for me, I think initially I thought I was going to go to pharmacy school, join my brother, be a pharmacist. But as soon as my last game was over as a player, I couldn't imagine having basketball out of my life forever. And I think my initial reasoning for getting into coaching was just my absolute love of basketball. But then, as Jeff just alluded to, once I got into coaching, it then became my love of people. And what energizes me every day is just our players. And they keep us so young, and they almost always put me in a reminiscing mode of everything they do, brings me back to when I was their age. And, ultimately I strive to be the coach that, I would want to play for, but also the coach that best fits and suits each of my players' individual needs. So I love what I do. And like, the saying is, if you love what you do, you really never work a day in your life. And that's the way it's been for me since I've been a coach.
Well, I got into coaching because I got a call. I was in the minor leagues with the Red Sox, and they said the spring training, I guess my second or third year, and they said they were thinking that you might be a good coach. We're thinking about a position for you. And I responded. I said, I don't think I'm done playing. I think I want to give this more of a shot. And they came back and said, well, we think you'd be a good coach. So I wasn't a good enough player. So that started me coaching. But I came from a family of teachers and educators. It's always what I've known that I wanted to do is help kids grow and develop. And the thing, I guess two quick stories that are linked that keep me energized. And these things happen as a coach all the time, but they're so amazing that keep all of us going. Is within the same 2-week period, I got a call from Gabe Hernandez, who had played here and had left an interview actually at Suffolk Construction, and called me and was like, Coach, I'm going to get that job. I killed that. That interview went great. I killed it. And he ended up getting that job. And he was so excited about getting what in some ways was a promotion and heading into a new job. But just that idea that he was so excited about getting this new job. And then 2 weeks later, I got a call from Chris Shaw, who got pulled off the bus in San Jose. He's in AAA, got pulled off the bus and sent up to San Francisco, got called up to the big leagues with the Giants. And both of those are equally important and impactful for us as coaches when you get to see these kids, in us boys or men and women that we're helping them grow into, but to see them grow and develop.
Thank you.
Joanna, Mike, and Jeff, I'd like to pick up on a theme that you all sort of mentioned. Coaching in a university setting is different than the pros, for sure. You're all educators here, and you're formators, especially at Boston College. At Boston College, one of our educational goals is to strive for and to promote, and probably even wrestle with the notion of the common good. How do you three understand the common good, and how do you incorporate these values into your coaching styles and the way you interact with your players? So why don't we start with Joanna?
Well, for me, I think, the common good sometimes is as simple as just knowing what's right and what's wrong and picking the right path, even when it's the harder path. And for our players to help them find what their right path is, not just with basketball, with life in general, is very important, because at the end of the day, I want them to have the same joy I get to have, which is bring my love and bring my craft to them and develop them and help them. If they pick the right field through their education at Boston College and through their developmental skills that they get on the court with me, with their work ethic and their grit and their tenacity, that's going to help them give of themselves. And again, expand the common good for everybody, which is the goal. So I think that Boston College, I say this in my recruiting process all the time, it's really neat. You know, as parents, we always say it takes a village to raise a child. And something that Boston College really has is they get the same message that I preach to them at practice. They get that same message from their professors. They get that same message from you guys in the community. And having that village around them really does help them promote the common good and be a big part of the common good of themselves. So that's, for me, how we incorporate it.
Mike?
I think the idea of the common good is obviously it's hard and it's complicated and it's crazy. I mean, I was a theology major, right? So whether it was Plato or Aristotle or St. Thomas, we read about everybody talking about that. Simplify it as making the world. How can you make the world around you a better place? And one of the ways that we talk about it, we spent time, Tim Breen, our chaplain, Chris Calderon was our chaplain before him. We spend time, and Quentin DuPont before him, we spend time teaching what Ignatius taught us all. And one of his meditations that we talk about a lot in our program that really is at the core of Ignatius taught us to ask, what have I done for Christ? What am I doing for Christ? And what will I do for Christ? Well, we sort of take that a little bit and change it towards our program. What have I done for the program? What am I doing for the program? And what will I do for the program? But if we can, through everything we're doing, have that idea ingrained into our players and people around our program, then when they do leave, they will take that idea and make the world around them a better place.
Well, I think, you know, Father Jack, the first part to your question, it's interesting and it kind of hits me because coaching in the pros is very different than coaching in college. And I spent seven of my last 8 years coaching in the National Football League. So I was at the pro level where it is more of a business and you do develop really good relationships and you're around great people, but it's not the same. And one of the reasons I came back to college athletics was because I missed that. I missed the relationships. I missed recruiting a 16, 17-year-old, getting to know him and getting to know his family, and possibly taking a kid out of an area where there aren't a lot of opportunities and giving him the opportunity of a lifetime and helping him and his family grow and being there for them. And I miss that. I miss that phone call 20 years down the road that says, Coach, thank you for everything you've done for me. Thank you for changing my life. That's the difference between coaching in the pros and coaching in the college. And the reason Boston College, even more so than just a college, is because this is the type of place where you can do that. And everybody wants you to do it that way. And Father Jack, I've already gotten to know extremely well and I've had incredible conversations with, but this is a place you do things the right way. There are no shortcuts. You're not asked to cut corners. You're not going to cheat. And you're going to instill all those values in the formation of the mind, the body, the spirit. And that's how we will coach. And that's how we will help raise these kids. And that's what we will teach them through football. And it's to do things the right way and do things that, you know, there is a process and it is going to be hard here sometimes. And that's great because when it is hard, it's real and you get the most out of it, which is so rewarding. And it isn't always about the wins and the losses. It's about how you got to the point where you're at. And if you gave it all that you had and you did it the right way, and you can go to bed and you can feel great about that at night. And at the end of the day, we will have better people here. And that's why it is so great to be here. And we're so honored to be here.
Michael, when our students first arrive at Boston College, we, as you know, hold a ceremony on Linden Lane at which every student is charged to go set the world aflame. That is, go prepare to make a real difference in the world. In what way is sport an opportunity to positively impact and influence the world beyond the college campus?
Yeah, one of the things that we talk about a lot with our guys and the small examples on the field that we use to teach them the greater life lessons, which is ultimately what our jobs are here, right? And yeah, it's about winning. We all want to win, like Haf said, but it's about teaching life lessons through sports. And so we talk a lot about sort of how each of them are interconnected in everything we do. Okay, so when there's a runner on second base and nobody out, and you move the runner, all right, and you somewhat give up your at-bat, drive the ball to the right side and get the runner to third base, the guy behind you gets an RBI. And that's going to help him, whether it's become all ACC or make more money in the draft, right? When we do throw a ball to the right base and keep a runner at first base, which then allows us to turn a double play, which then keeps the pitcher's ERA down, which it helps us win a baseball game, and it also helps him as he's trying to move on to professional baseball. So we talk about everything we're doing and why you're doing it for each other. What, in our case, you're doing it for your brothers, right? We talk a lot about that brotherhood with 35 boys going into men on our roster. And what does that mean to take care of each other, right? That at bat is not yours. That's the team's, and you're taking care of each other to help us all have success. And then we talk about examples of how is that going to then help you when you leave it, right? What is that going to mean in your job someday? What is that going to mean in your family someday, as a father, as a husband, as a coworker, as somebody who's helping anywhere in the world? That's the first thing. The second thing is, I mean, we have what I believe is one of the best examples of what a Jesuit education can do and be and create. And especially starting this fall when we get to come to work every day in the Pete Frady Center, and we get to talk about somebody who was educated by Boston College and had the worst possible news you can. He got a literal death sentence at 27, and his reaction was not to feel sorry for himself. His reaction was, well, what can I do to help everybody else? He knew it wasn't going to help him. Pete knew that. So talk about setting the world aflame. Pete reacted by, what can I do to help others, right? And so we also have an example that we get to see and talk about and try to emulate every day that's very close to us.
Thank you.
Guys, I kind of want to bring us to what's going on in the world today. That's one of the reasons why Jim Keenan's come up with this series. And so I do want to ask the three of you that sports is one of the greatest gateways for the underrepresented and underserved populations to gain access to education. And that's a wonderful thing. But how can athletics promote Black Lives Matters and be a catalyst for change in society and for the students you coach? How can we interface, accompany, and be a catalyst for Black Lives Matter, and to hopefully be a cornerstone through athletics to bring change in our society? So Jeff, why don't you start, and then we'll go to Mike and Joanna.
Yeah, like you said, sports are such a great catalyst for change in our society. They bring together people of different ethnicities, different races, different cultures, different backgrounds, all for the common good. And I believe there's so much that we can learn from that. And that, to me, is one of the biggest things that I personally learned growing up. You grow up in a certain area with, some people don't grow up in areas where there's a lot of different people. And when you get to a place and all of a sudden people look different from different countries, from different cities, from different backgrounds, you have to come together, and you have to learn to come together for the common good. And I think that's what sports represents. So, we're trying to give our players the voice and the platform they need to positively go impact our community and go impact people, because we do have a platform to a lot of people that are underprivileged, and they look up to these players, and we need to teach our players so that they understand that and they realize that. We've talked to our players quite a bit during this time, and we've developed a leadership council that we've talked to. We have a very diverse staff, our football staff, and I've been educated. I know our players have been educated. We've had team meetings, we've had speakers, and we will continue to do so. I think the education is huge. But I think the one thing we also talk about a lot is positive action. And our team keeps talking about positive action. It's one thing to tweet out something or say something or write something, but how can we positively impact people and help change people's lives? And our players want to get involved. One of the things that, Father Jack, we've talked about adopting a community center or school of underprivileged kids, and our players want to get involved with them. And whether we bring them out to games, whether we go there on Sundays, whether they come to practice, to show them what our great men have become and show them what they can become. And if they can change, if each of our players can help change 1 or 2 or 3 kids' lives forever and really help them, that's impactful. and through sport. I think we have so many great examples to show that, and we're encouraging our players and supporting our players to do that.
I think one of the things that we talked about, and we talked about with our team when this whole thing happened, is I don't know if our platform is big enough to change the world. It's not here, but we can change each other's world and the world with the people that we touch around us. So, one of the first things we did is we had one of my close friends, Robert Lewis, runs an organization in Boston called The Base, who we do a lot of work with. And it's an urban baseball group that actually just started basketball. It's an absolutely amazing group. And they are around our program a lot, and we do a lot to help them out. But I always joke that Robert and I met 10 years ago when he came in and sort of told me this idea of what he was wanting to build. And he and I joked that it was love at first sight, because one of the first things he said to me was, I think this is just about baseball. They're missing the point. And his organization does amazing things in the city of Boston through baseball, but helping all these kids get to college. And one of the things that I said to our boys when I introduced Robert, and there's a story I love that I'm pretty sure I stole from Father Penna about a boy walking down the beach with his father, and they come across thousands of starfish that had washed up onto the beach. And the little boy says to his dad, what happened to all these starfish? And the dad says, well, they washed up and they're all going to die. And the little boy picks one up and he throws it back into the, and the dad says, well, son, there's thousands of starfish out there. That's not really going to make a difference. And the little boy says, well, it will to that starfish. And the thing that I said to the team with Robert coming to talk to all of us, was that I wasn't sure in that story if the example was Robert was the little boy and we were all the starfish that he was saving us and helping us, or if we were all the players were going to have the ability to help one starfish, right? I wasn't exactly sure how it worked, but the idea that if we can all make a difference somewhere small along the way, then you can really start changing the world. As corny as it sounds, sort of one person, one starfish at a time. I know it sounds kind of, like I said, it's kind of crazy. Robert really made a huge impact on our team with what he said and what he spoke. And then Justin Dunn came and spoke to our team. And one of the things that Justin's father said to me in this process, and I was talking to him as Justin was coming on to talk, was Ed said that the idea, and Justin has become one of the faces of our program over the last 6 years since he was a pitcher here through the foreseeable future. And Ed said that's not insignificant in today's world, that he has become a face of our program and a spokesperson for the program and the school in a lot of ways. And I hadn't really thought about it like that. But again, if we can make small changes with people around us.
I know with our players, and I love the starfish story. That's really awesome. But our players, I knew that I needed to listen first and foremost. And like Coach Hafley said, really let them educate me. And I wanted them to know that it was okay for them to talk and really be open. And that's not always easy for people to do, especially when you're different. You know what I mean? So for us, it was just laying that groundwork that I wanted them to make sure that I love them. They know I love them, and to really be open and honest and share with me their feelings. And because this is something that didn't just happen, even though this is when it's been brought to light for us in this, this past few months. This is an ongoing thing that they've had to deal with their entire lives, and their families have had to deal with. So for me, it was more, I wanted them to just educate me, and I wanted to listen and learn. And then I wanted to have them help me and tell me, how can we help you and put things into action? Because, at Boston College, it is amazing that they're not just regular kids. They are men and women for others, and they don't just say that as something that is the school motto. They live it, they believe it. And they really, just like Coach Hafley said, they didn't want it just to be a tweet here or there or something for show. They wanted it to be something real, and they want real change. And they know that and we can help people and we can make a difference. And they had to give me ways and educate me on how I can do that and how I can play my part. And they've been doing that and helping me learn that. And in turn, you know, I wanted to make sure they knew they had all of my support and anything they wanted to do and how they could use their platforms as athletes really and use their social media and their status to make a difference. And that's still a work in progress. And I hope that's going to be an ongoing work in progress and until they're old and gray and that we're continuing to see the world change.
I want to take an opportunity to invite people to remember to send us your questions, questions that we can ask the coaches for you. And I'm going to kind of model it a little bit. I'm gonna give Coach Hafley a break here because I kind of know what Coach Hafley is doing because I get the privilege of hanging around football. So I'm going to ask Joanna and Mike, during this pandemic, what has been some of the challenges around student-athlete health and well-being in particular? And so in general, what are the concerns today with college athletics and mental health? Because I think the two kind of go together. So when you think of the pandemic, how are you kind of trying to keep your teams together? How are you trying to keep them connected? How are you trying to keep them integrated? But in general, mental health is a big issue facing the world today, facing young people today. And how has it been impacting your programs?
Well, I think, you know, what the pandemic has done for all of us, you know, all of us as humans, what do we love? We love human contact and being around people. And one thing I know our players love is, and we're lucky because they have really good chemistry, they do love each other. And when you're that age, you know, for us, we're older, so it's not as hard to be maybe in our house or whatever. But these are kids that in their mind, they had one thing pictured for what their summer was going to look like. And a lot of them, their summer was going to be on campus, getting better, working out, and really honing their skills to be great. And not only that, before, you know, when the pandemic first took place, that was right as we were just hopefully going to get a berth in the NCAA tournament. And so that was a pretty big crush for all of us. And then having summer, you know, up to this point kind of taken away, I know for our players, what we've tried to do is just keep them connected, even though it's not face-to-face human contact, doing these Zooms like we're doing right now with you all and trying to find creative ways to stay connected, because that connection and making them still feel like they're a part of the whole, right? Because that's the whole thing with team sports is they're individuals that are part of something bigger than themselves, and that's what they really love being a part of. And it kind of gets taken away. And for our student athletes, I'm sure for Coach Hafley's and Coach Gambino's, when they were just put back in their houses, kind of almost like they were high school kids again, that was tough for them to just be kind of isolated on their own. So we've done a lot of things just to talk, and we've had guest speakers. We've done a book club where we've listened to an audiobook together and discussed the book. We've done different games. We've done film sessions, but all those kind of things that we can just kind of stay connected is how we've been dealing with it. And I think that I know one thing, our team can't wait to get back on campus. And that maybe that's the silver lining to all of this is that normally athletes don't ever get to have that feeling unless they're injured, right? They never really get to miss their sport unless maybe they have an injury and it gets taken away from them. And in this case, they're really just missing it. And sometimes distance makes the heart grow that much fonder. So that's what we keep telling, you know, them and each other, that when we get together, we're going to just be even that much better.
Yeah, I think there's sort of two things with these kids going on. One, like Max said, you have the sport side of it, right? So these, you know, for our players, we're 4 weeks into our season, and you have some of these guys that are working towards a professional draft. So not only do their senior season or their junior season get taken away, but then the draft, Major League Baseball gets taken away, the draft gets taken away. So some of these kids who are getting ready to play on was a team that had a chance to really make some noise, and a team that could really go deep. And by the way, Joanna, you guys were an NCAA tournament team. Absolutely. You guys were the 64. But, you know, to go in the tournament and make a run and then go play professional baseball. And now, yeah, they're sitting at home with their folks. Not that they don't love their parents, but they'd much rather have been out playing professional baseball. So sorting through all that and understanding what that means and what is it like, and nobody knows what's going on day to day, was the first hard part. And the second part is, if you think about this time for us as adults, right? Think about when you run into somebody that you know in a grocery store right now or anywhere. Like, as adults, we don't know what to do. Am I supposed to shake your hand? Can I give you a hug if I haven't seen you? Like, what do I do? Am I allowed to hold the door for somebody walking behind me? And like, everything that we do is all of a sudden there's like some anxiety involved. I'm like, can I handle that? And these are kids that we teach them. They're still learning how to shake hands and say hello to somebody. They're learning that in their development. And now you shake that foundation. So their worlds are rocked. So it's sort of understanding and knowing where they are and trying to help them get through that and talking to them. And, you know, in a lot of ways, they're not different. My 4-year-old, who's obviously was not in nursery school a couple weeks ago, just said, Daddy, I just want to go to school and see my friends. And that sums up where these kids are. They just want to see their friends. Luckily, our guys, a lot of them are starting to, baseball leagues are starting again. So that's helping. But that mental health piece is huge.
Coach, is that you have the opportunity to deal with parents often. During this period of COVID-19 and this period of racial tensions and the thrust towards equality, in what ways have these realities changed the way you interact with parents? This question is for Jeff and Mike.
Yeah, it's as my first time really as a head coach, and being here with this team. One, it has not given me the opportunity to, you know, really sit down face to face with a lot of these parents, which is unfortunate. And I'm really looking forward to that. But you know what, truthfully, I don't have a lot to compare it to as a head coach. As an assistant coach, I think in my career at least, especially in college, it's been huge to stay connected with the parents. Not just to tell them when things are going bad, but when to let them know when things are going good as well. And, you know, during this time, I've had meetings for the parents over Zoom, the best that we could, whether it was talk about COVID when it first started, whether it was to discuss our return to play, or whether it was to get the doctors involved. So the parents were exactly on the same page, because I do believe that that's really important. And then with everything else going on in the world, we had a meeting, and I just wanted them to know the initiatives that our players were taking and how great their sons were, you know, coming up with ideas and giving support. So truthfully, I've done the best that we could, staying in touch with them, keeping them involved, without being able to sit down and meet them. Not ideal at all, but like we're all looking at each other right now. We're all pretty good at Zoom. We've all probably been on this way too long. And while I appreciate Zooming with all you guys, I'm hoping it's face-to-face one of these days.
Me too.
Yeah, you have, for that, you sort of have the two sides of it. Like Haf talked about, you have the parents of the current players. And we did the same thing. We had some Zoom meetings during the school year, during what would have been our season a couple times. And the hard part about those meetings for a lot of our parents, the questions that they had, you know, what's going to happen with the Major League Draft? What's going to happen with summer baseball? There were so many I don't knows. And I just kind of kept going back to that. And then, you know, so as more information comes out, it helps. And we're learning that it's looking like the kid will be back on campus. You're able to start giving them some better news, which is great. But it is hard. And then you have the recruiting side, right, where you're trying to talk to kids and talk to parents and build relationships and let them know and understand who we are as a university, what are our values and principles as a program, how does that serve our mission, and you know, it's not the same when you're not in person. It's not. I do think one of the advantages of Boston College in general, with everything going on in the world today, is one of the things that BC does best, and I would argue better than just about anybody else, is take care of their kids, right? We take care of because they are kids when they come to campus, and you hope they're grown-ups when they leave, but take care of these kids throughout anything and help them grow and develop. And that idea of formation is so important here. So I think that is an advantage because people don't understand that.
I think we have one last question before we open it up for the questions from the people watching us tonight. And this is for Joanna. In 1972, 294,000 women played high school sports. Last year, this number increased to 3.4 million. Given this exponential growth, how do you explain, Joanna, the disparity in both opportunity and resources for women's sports versus men's?
Well, the disparity I think you just kind of mentioned is how much has it improved since 1972, right? It is greatly improved. And, there are so many women participating and girls in sports participating, and everybody sees that value in what sports gives them. So there's a lot more things that they can do recreational and with the middle schools, grade schools, high schools, and opportunity in and of itself. But, when it comes to resources, sometimes I think, like, do you know how there's that song on the radio, and when you first hear it, you're like, oh, I can't stand that song. And then they play it so much throughout the week that then over the weekend, that end of that week, you're like singing it. You're like, I didn't even like the song, but you find yourself singing it. But why? Because they played it. That's what you heard all the time on the radio was that song. And so I think sports is sometimes like that. What's on TV all the time? What are you watching? You're mainly watching men play sports. So even that has gotten so much better. When I was a kid, like when I was in high school, all I ever got to watch when it came to women playing basketball on TV was the Olympics. And I'm embarrassing to say, but that's all I wanted to be, was an Olympic basketball player one day. That was my dreams, because that's what I saw. That sounds crazy because I'm 5'4" and I'm not very good at basketball, but that's what I wanted, so because that's what I saw. And then I remember in college, finally, like, games would be on and they would be regional college games would sometimes be playing. And I would set the VCR for the timer and this and that, because I couldn't believe I was going to get to play, watch women play on TV. And I was so excited to get to see that. And, look at it now. We have ESPN2 that dedicates a lot of their coverage to women's sports. We have the ESPNW. We have other things now. But it's still not as prime time as it needs to be. So even since I've been at Boston College, I'll get the new people I meet in my neighborhood. I'll say, hey, why don't you come to one of our games? And generally they're like, it's all right. And I'm like, no, come on. I'll give you free tickets. Free tickets sells everybody, right? So they say, yeah, okay. I say, it's great for your family. You'll love it. And inevitably, when they come, and I'm telling, this happens everywhere I've ever coached, when they come and they watch, they are sold. And they're fans then of women and women's sports for life almost, because they can't get over, I had no idea they played so hard and they're so athletic and it's so competitive. That was fun. And so I think the more we're exposed and the more we're thrown out there, then the more that we will be supported. Because without financial support and those kind of things, it's hard to make that impact. And so exposure is everything at the end of the day. And hopefully one day we're going to be like that song, that everybody's singing on weekends.
Well, it comes to the point where it's kind of exciting. The people that have been listening to you are anxious to ask you some questions. So I'm going to throw you the first one, and it comes from Stephen Koo, who's in our undergraduate admissions. And Stephen's been helping us get people to come to BC for years, and he has a question for all three of you. When you recruit a high schooler to commit to play for you at Boston College, is there anything extra special about trying to recruit someone to play at and attend a Jesuit Catholic institution, especially when it comes to the common good? So Jeff, you've been quiet for a while, so I'll pick on you first, and then we'll wick it around.
Yeah, I think that's huge, and I think that's a really good question. And that, truthfully, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to come here, because I believe we have that at the school's an advantage that most don't. And I think that's so important, because when you talk to these kids, it's not just about football or basketball or baseball. And I don't want to put words into the other coaches' mouths, but it's so much more than that. It's the opportunity of a lifetime, not only to get an amazing degree at one of the best schools in the entire country, but it's to grow as a young man, and it's to learn how to do things the right way. And we constantly talk about men and women for others and the formation of the whole entire person, and how football, again, the league I just left, it's hard, and football is not going to last very long. And when you develop in 40 years, you are just you have so much more by coming here to school. And you're developed not only as a football player, but as a man and a father and a husband. And you learn how to do things the right way. That will last you a lifetime, which is so much more important than football. So we constantly talk about that, and we believe in that. And again, it's one of the reasons that I wanted to come here, and it's one of the reasons that we will recruit well here.
This question could be for Mike and for Joanna. Kathy Bailey, a professor in the political science department and a former BC athlete, asks, student athletes have a lot on their plate, which can be very stressful and at times overwhelming. How do you help them balance their commitment to their sport and to their and to academics?
Mike, go ahead. I'll let you take that first.
Actually, that's actually a perfect question following up on what Stephen Koo just asked, because if you sort of look at the answer that Haf just gave, and that what I was going to talk about is in the recruiting process, I talk to these kids and tell them that if it's not your goal to pitch or play in the big leagues, and this is not the right place for you. We want guys that want to play in the big leagues. We want guys that want to go to Omaha. But at the same time, we want guys that are tremendously driven in the classroom, right? And it's not one or the other, right? You can do both. And on top of that, we want young men that know and understand that this education, when you come to Boston College, the idea of men and women for others will be ingrained into you. That will be who you become. If that's not attractive to you, then this is the wrong spot. If it's, and I will talk about in the recruiting process to kids that there is no easy way through here. There is no way to coast through Boston College. It's one of the top universities in the country, and you're going to get an amazing degree, but it's going to be hard, and you're going to have to work, and you're going to care about it. And then we put that into practice when I talk to them about their schedule, that you're going to go to lift in the morning, and then you're going to go to class after that, and then you're going to go to practice, and then you're going to go to study hall, and you're going to be doing homework at night, and you're going to be writing a paper on an airplane coming home. So you talk about that in the recruiting process, and then they see it when they get here. So that idea of learning how to manage their time becomes critical, but it becomes something that has been talked about all the way through. It's part of why they came here. So then it's what they do when they get here.
Absolutely. And, we talk about, like how you said, in the recruiting process, it's not a 4-year decision, it's a 40-year decision. And the return on investment that you get from attending Boston College is so much greater, in my opinion, than other places you could choose. And as far as the time management goes, I think that's what makes student athletes special, is because their candles are burning at both ends. And it is not easy. It's definitely, we always say that their 4 years of college is going to be at times the most difficult thing they'll ever do, but it's also going to be the most rewarding and the most fun. And what we do with our freshmen when they first come in is on Sundays, we have a team study hall. So our whole team, and it's easier for me to do that because we only have 12 to 15 girls. And these ladies get together on Sundays, regardless of their GPA. And then within that, we'll have time management tutors that come in and work with them. And the upperclassmen will, of course, have regular tutors or whatever, but those freshmen have time management tutors that help them iron out their week and figure out when they need to study, almost down to this is what your day looks like. This is probably when you should shower, when you should eat, because otherwise it can get really crazy and overwhelming. And then I always say, there is a lot of time in the day, right? 24 hours. And you have, say, 12 hours of the day that you have, and maybe there's 4 that are yours. And of those 4, what you decide to do with those 4 is going to determine your greatness. So we do talk a lot about, spending their time wisely and not getting too caught up in scrolling social media or watching Netflix or wasting time, but using their time very wisely to be great.
Thanks. We have another question from Quasi from the BC Library, a dear friend of mine and dear friend of just about everybody at BC. And I think he asked a question, and I know at least 2 of you have an answer for this. So I'm going to throw it out to all 3 of you and see what you're going to say. Quasi asks, how have students reversed roles and become coaches to their coaches? And do you have any single moment as a coach that you can bring to mind that was made real for you? And like I said, I have the cheat sheet because I've heard some of you talk and I know it's out there. So I'm going to let all 3 of you have a chance to answer it.
I feel like with my players, they teach me, and I tell them all the time, I grow and learn from them literally on a daily basis. Sometimes it's as simple as just how they treat each other, because again, I have a group of young women that come from all different walks of life, from all different backgrounds. They're thrown into a locker room and onto a court, and they're asked to compete for, there's, like I said, 12 of them to 15 of them, to compete for 5 playing spots. And at most 8 to 9 people are going to play. And they're asked to just go at each other for 3 hours hard every day. And then they're also asked to love each other, respect each other in everything they do. That's a really hard balance. And they find a way to do it, and they do it with this compassion and grace and respect for each other. And I think that I learned from them just how to welcome and understand people's differences. And they do a great job of it. And, on top of that, I probably learned some TikTok over that, and some other things that keep me, I like to say they try to keep me hip. So that's been good.
What about the other two?
You got it, Mike?
Go ahead, F.
I haven't been around our players for very long, but I've certainly learned a lot from listening to them over these Zooms, and I've certainly taken a lot from them. And it's hard sometimes over Zoom when you have 100 and so many people on. So I've kind of dwindled it down, and I kind of try to pop into certain rooms to see how guys are doing every day. And we have a really good leadership council. And, I've over my times as a coach, I've learned to listen more than I talk, because when you really listen to these guys, you can figure a lot of things out, and when they need help, and when they need your support, when certain guys on the team need help, and when they need your support. And you learn a lot about your team that way. And I've learned as a coach, and especially now that I'm a head coach, you got to listen, and you got to take the time to do that. Just overall, in my career, talking football now, I probably learn more from players than I have from coaches. If you guys are around practice, you're ever around me, and I'm always asked, I'm never a guy that's going to say, oh, what did you do that for? I ask why. If a guy makes a mistake, I ask him why. And a lot of times he'll tell me why, and I'll smile and say, all right, I probably would have done the same thing. Or, a guy does something in the middle of the game, and instead of grabbing his face mask and pulling him close, he said, hey, why'd you do that? What'd you see? And I try to figure it out, and I try to explain it the best that I can. And I think when you start to do that, just in general in life, you can figure a lot of things out. Don't be quick to, yell when a guy makes a mistake. Mistakes sometimes are good to make. Sometimes you can learn a lot from them. But I challenge these guys to think, and they challenge me to think. They ask me hard questions, and I appreciate that. And I do find that you learn a lot about yourself when you're around these players for a large part of time. And they'll challenge you, which is great. That is a good question. It makes you think a lot.
I got a really good lesson in that in general, in how to listen to your players. This is years ago, and for everybody who knows and understands, before we were lucky enough to play at the Harrington Athletics Village, we practiced on Shea Field. So essentially, you didn't always have access to your field. And some days you thought you were going to be able to practice and you couldn't. And things would get messed up, and football practice would go longer, and a million things could happen. And I remember one day early on, our practice got shortened for a bunch of different reasons. We got out to the field. We only had the field for a small amount of time. And I remember saying to the guys as we walked out, and I had to readjust our whole practice plan. So I said to them, I head out to line, get stretched out real quick, give me a second to reorganize, and then I'll tell you what we're doing. And literally like 4 minutes later, they jogged back in. And I looked at them, I'm like, what are you doing? That's not our normal warm-up, our normal routine. And one of the captains looked at me and said, well, you said get stretched out real quick. I said, yeah, you did exactly what I asked you. That's not what I meant for you to do, but you did exactly what I said and exactly what I had communicated. So one of the things that I learned really early on is every time I'm trying to talk to an individual player or the team to then ask them, all right, where are you? What'd you get out of that? Well, what did you take from that? Because sometimes you have to get where they are to understand the lens that they're hearing, that they're seeing things through, or the filter that they're hearing the message. And you might be trying to say the right thing, but it's not getting there. And then you have to try it again.
This next question comes from a rising sophomore by the name of Aiden O'Neill. And he says, as heads of different athletic programs, how do you find yourselves supporting each other's programs as well as other non-athletic groups on campus? Joanna?
For me, that's always on my list of things I have to continue to work on, to be honest, because I know sometimes we get so involved in our own day-to-day that we sometimes neglect each other. And that's something that's very special about Boston College is our coaches of all the sports are really unbelievable people. There isn't a bad apple in our bunch, really. And so the fact that we can all support each other, you know, I know for me, I have to do a better job, but that's my biggest thing. When I think sport, I think grabbing my husband and my boys and getting out and watching these other teams play. And when he talks about different people on campus and different activities and groups on campus, is getting involved with them. And that's a two-way street. So you said his name was Aiden. If he actually has some organizations, give us an email, drop us an email and invite us to do things with them, because we're always looking for opportunities to get more involved with the different groups on campus.
Thank you.
I think some things we have here as head coaches and what I believe is the greatest hockey coach of all time, arguably the greatest coach of all time and a better person. But I remember when I first got this job and Jerry York would call and text and check in and see how I'm doing and pop up to my office. And, you know, I was 31-year-old, 32, whatever I was, first time head coach fighting for my life. And Jerry was looking out for me because that's what we do here. Right. So, you know, you talk about, I think what St. Francis said, right? Preach every day. And if you must use words, Jerry was teaching all of us that that's how you take. And now we all do that. And we have the coaches in this department, you know, I tell you, when you take a terrible loss, you know, you will get, and there's nothing anybody can say, but you'll know you get one of the head coaches, a couple of them will be like, yeah, all right, you know, or flip side, when things are going well, they'll be there for you.
And I'll say Coach York has taught you well, because Coach Gambino has had my back since I got the job. As far as I know, after a tough loss, he usually drops me it's all right type of text. And after a big win, he's the first one. He's almost always the first text I get. So, and just him stopping by my office. So, you know, Coach York is a great mentor, because you've really helped my last 2 years be super positive. So thank you.
No, that's real what Coach Gambino's saying too, because again, I'm the new guy here and I have not been here very long at all, especially since we've all been sent home. But Coach Gambino has texted me multiple times from the day I got here. Coach Mack, same exact thing. And, you know, in the short period of time, I tried my best. I went and watched 2 women's games. I went and watched men's game. I went and watched hockey games. I brought my daughter to a women's basketball game. And you're right. When you watch a women's game, what you said before, you hit it right on the head. The fundamentals, the technique, the detail that your players play with is incredible. And you just start watching it, and it's like, wow, this is really, really good basketball. And Coach Gambino, when baseball gets back, I will be there to watch baseball, and I will bring my kids. But that's why when I got here, that's what does make this place special. And we all have to get together, and we should come together and do that. And that's what I missed when I was in the National Football League, because it didn't exist. That's community, and that's who we are at Boston College. And Aiden, I said it in my press conference, and you probably didn't hear it. If you did, you don't remember, and I don't blame you, because I wouldn't remember either. But I want to get together with this school, not just athletics, but with the community, with the students, with the faculty, and I want to do that. And I'm sorry I haven't been able to, because I've barely been allowed in my office. But in a few years, we will. So, Aiden, shoot me an email, man, if you got any ideas.
Well, I can't believe the hour has flown by. I I know Father Jack Butler, my co-host, and I would like to thank Joanna, Jeff, and Mike for their time and for their participation this evening. And all five of us, I'm sure, would like to thank all the people who listened in to this seminar, webinar, and then especially those people who have submitted questions. Now, our next segment of Show at 6, the theme will be Jesuit Refugee Service. And our guest will be Thomas M. Crea, Professor and Chair of Global Practice and Assistant Dean of Global Programs at School of Social Work, Marianne Lawfrey from the Jesuit Refugee Service, Alejandro Oleo Mendez, S.J., the Assistant Professor, School of Social Work, Marcia Ryan, the Associate Director, Supervised Ministry and Global and Community Engagement at the School of Theology and Ministry. And the host for the next segment will be James F. Keenan of the Society of Jesus, the Canisius Chair in the Theology Department, Vice Provost for Global Engagement, and the Director of the Jesuit Institute. And he'll be joined by Nara Enton Longrath, who is an alumnus in class of 2014. And a final word to our listeners. Please remember that you need to register for each segment that you want to attend. As you know, registration is very brief, but each segment has a different webinar link. So please check out our webpage, bc.edu/show-at-6, and see the next segments. And while you're there, be sure to check out our archives, where all our previous segments are posted there for you. In closing, we say to everyone who listened in this evening, be well, stay safe, and good night from Boston College.
Good night.